Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Vagabond VC podcast, where we talk to venture capitalists, founders, and others involved in the startup and funding ecosystems in global markets. Today, we continue our journey through Mexico's ecosystem with my guest, Diego Serebrisky. He's the co-founder and managing partner of Dalus Capital. Diego, welcome.
Hi, Seb. Thanks for the invitation to be here.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. Why don't you tell us about Dalus Capital? What are you guys working on there, and what kind of spaces do you invest in, and what stage?
Sure. Well, we are a venture capital fund based in Mexico, but investing throughout the Latin American region. We normally invest in stages, startups at the stages of Series A and Series B, and some seed opportunities. And we look at 4 investment themes. And we call them inclusion, which essentially startups providing access to finance, education, health, and work opportunities. The second one is climate innovation, which are startups using technology to help reduce emissions or mitigation or adapt to the climate change. Third theme is business productivity, which is solutions to make businesses from SMBs to enterprise level more productive. And the fourth one is digital consumers, which are startups providing digital access to goods and services.
What specifically about those 4 areas interests you, and why is your fund and your team geared towards those? And do you have a background in any of those categories, or do you specialize in those?
We focus on these themes because we think these are some of the biggest challenges that we have in Latin America. And let me talk about inclusion first. One of the big problems in the region is that there is a large number of the population that doesn't have the full access to these services. Some estimations from multilateral entities talk about like around 400 million people in LATAM without proper access, as I say, to finance, education, health. So, we think that one way of solving that is using technology with scalable solutions, and that's what we are trying to support. In a sense, finding the right entrepreneurs that are building solutions that are very scalable because they're using new technology to provide access or better access to those services than what the traditional economy has been doing. We're kind of very passionate about this because we think that that we think as a team that we need to contribute, not only look for financial returns for our investors, but also do something positive for society. And we think that by investing in the right entrepreneurs, building the right startups, we are doing that. We are improving the life of potentially millions of people in the region.
So you are one of the co-founders of this firm and this fund. How did Dalus get started? What's the story there?
We started with the name of Alta Ventures, and this was as one of the pioneer funds in Mexico. It was,
and that's Alta Ventures.
Alta Ventures Mexico, and it was started, by my partner Rogelio de los Santos. He was a serial entrepreneur in Mexico, building several businesses, and he decided to raise a fund to help entrepreneurs, and I joined him very early after he created the first fund, and we have been investing in that fund, and then raised our second fund in 2016, and which is the one that we are investing now, and that's what we have been doing since then. I think the motivation for both Rogelio and I was, we saw that there was, great entrepreneurs in Mexico and Latin America, with a lot of talent, comparable to what you see in other regions around the world. We saw that governments were starting to support creating these entrepreneurial ecosystems, but what was missing, it was investors with really investing experience in startups, and so that's the reason we decided to move into this and build a team that will support those entrepreneurs in their journeys.
And so if you think back to when you were beginning and raising your fund, now you mentioned that there are more entrepreneurial resources from the government there in Mexico. What about when it comes to the financial part of things, and have they made things easier for fund managers as well when they're raising capital? What kind of difficulties were there when you were raising your first fund, and has that been addressed? And what are some changes that have happened?
Well, I think that it was hard to raise that first fund, and it continues to be hard, very, very, very frankly. And I think that what we see is investors in Mexico and Latin America, they didn't know about venture capital, and I think for many years there were many of them were skeptical about if really you can deploy money and generate results similar to what anybody could read about what happens in, for example, Silicon Valley. That has been changing, and one of the consequences of the pandemic is that there has been more people understanding that we are switching or we're moving from a traditional economy to a digital economy very quickly, and the pandemic is accelerating that. And so the opportunities for creation of value are on the digital economy, and that's what is happening. So that is kind of the positive, and more funds and more successful startups have been raised, and there has been exits in the region, and that is increasing kind of the profile of the venture capital industry. I don't think that we have seen so much progress on the point of view of positive regulation to support funds. And there has been changes where some countries like Mexico at some moment had programs to support the development of seed funds, but then they were canceled, and it's, I think on that front it's a struggle, because not necessarily all the governments really understand the benefits that venture capital brings to the whole economy and society, and so not necessarily we have seen the same type of support that you see in other places. But that's the reality that we have to live with.
So you mentioned that there hasn't been much movement from a regulation standpoint. As a venture capitalist there in Mexico, do you have any influence in terms of educating the government there on some of the benefits of venture capital to help influence some of the programs in place? I don't know if you guys are able to actually work with any individuals there to help move this forward.
Yeah, I think there has been a lot of effort from different fund managers active in the country. Also, we have an association called AMEXCAP, which is the Mexican Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, where most of the funds, both private equity and venture capital, are members of. And there has been efforts to convey the value that especially venture capital brings to, as I say, to the economy, to society, to the country. But still, probably the results have been not as successful as we want. There is a sense that, in a way that venture capital might be helping only some part of the economy and not having a big impact, which in a sense is not different what you might see in the US and when you see what happened in Silicon Valley compared to other regions. So it has been tough to really communicate those benefits and therefore convince government officials to have more interesting programs that to support the growth of venture capital and the startup ecosystem and the positive consequences that might bring.
You also had mentioned obviously COVID-19, which we're still dealing with, but
Yes.
and the digitization of the economy. And obviously, there are opportunities in terms of innovation and startups and entrepreneurship that come out of that. But from an investing standpoint, how has the pandemic changed your strategy for sourcing startups and your focus in terms of finding entrepreneurs and even the way you go about investing in them, because now you can't meet face to face? Like, has your strategy changed at all?
I would say not significantly. Before the pandemic, in our case, we were very used to be a remote team. In fact, we have offices in Mexico City, where I'm based, and Monterrey, which is a city in the north of Mexico. So our team was in two locations, and we were very used to work remotely. We have been a kind of power users of Zoom for many years. And in the past, we have done some investments where we didn't meet in person with entrepreneurs because they were outside Mexico in other Latin American countries. It was not the norm, but we have some cases. So for us, the change has been, I would say, less dramatic. I think that there are two kind of big impacts of these pandemic times. One is that the whole team is working remotely, so you don't have inside the team the same interaction that we used to have. Being in an office, even we had a policy of flexible home office, but people will be part of their time, or in some cases most of their time, at the office. You can interact, you can get a lunch together, you can get a coffee together, and that is something that doesn't happen when everybody's doing home office and interacting via Zoom or some other electronic means. So keeping kind of the culture and the cohesiveness of the team is tougher for sure. I think analyzing investments and analyzing investment opportunities, it hasn't been such a big change. We have done a few investments during this time, and we haven't met the entrepreneurs kind of physically, but we have spent hours and hours on Zoom or other video conferencing tools. We have got kind of virtual tours of facilities and things like that. So I think it's something that people can live with, and I think doesn't have a significant impact on the work that we do. Now, originating investments might be a different thing because we are very active in kind of inbound and outbound origination, and so we get contacted by entrepreneurs, a lot of referrals from entrepreneurs in our portfolio companies or people that know us, our network. When we see interest in startups, we call and contact them. But also we were very active attending events in the ecosystem, from conferences, meetups, and things like that, which were great places to meet new entrepreneurs. We tend to go to attend many demo days, for example. But those have switched to a kind of a virtual format, and they work. I think that the part that really has been lacking is a virtual substitute for those conferences and meetups. There has been a number of them, especially last year, but the networking interaction that you can get, I think it's very cool. So far, I haven't seen kind of a good formula that works as well as being in person at one of these events. So we have to see how that evolves, because for sure some of them still, for at least for a big part of this year, will continue to be virtual.
Yeah, I had attended a virtual conference last year, and I remember thinking that, so they used a program to help people network and find people that would be a good fit to meet one another. And to your point, it's certainly not the same as just having a kind of surprise encounter with someone in person.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something missing there. And you mentioned too, even if you're working with a founder remotely, or at least kind of doing some initial conversations and due diligence, getting virtual tours of their office, things like that. You can't really you try to get a feel for their culture and their team. And beyond, beyond that, whether it's virtually or in person, what are some things that you are looking for in a founder, a team, or a startup as a whole when you're trying to invest? What are some of those signals that tells you, oh, this is something we want to invest in and we think is going to be successful?
We think is finding the right combination of a great team, which is very proactive, experience in their sector, and also that at the stage that we invest, that they have shown that they can execute on things that are building a solution for a real problem out there. And I say that because it's important that the problem they are trying to solve really exists, and there are users or clients or customers willing to use and pay for that solution. If that is not strong enough, that user or customer acquisition is going to be very, very tough. So it's that combination. Is a real problem. So a very proactive team building a solution for a real problem that has, that potentially could have significant size. Is, if they are successful and, the problem is there and their solution is great, really how big this can be. Is this a niche product, or is something that can become more massive, either in just in one country or in a region, and potentially globally? So it's that combination of factors, and for talking about specifically about the team, I think it is that combination of a team that can execute, so that can implement things quickly, but that always have a vision of what they are trying to accomplish, and that they have that capability of selling that vision. and really be convince other people about what they are doing, because that becomes fundamental to recruit more people in their team, to convince potential customers, convince potential partners, and also to be able to raise more capital in the future to grow. So if you don't have the vision, and or you cannot communicate that vision in a way that generate enthusiasm in other people,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be very hard to grow.
So speaking of just what you're looking for in startups, do you have an investment or a recent investment you're willing to talk about that excites you?
Yeah, we for example, we invested here in Mexico in a startup called Cali,
Mm-hmm.
with double I at the end, and they're on kind of an online supermarket.
That's
It's-
Cali, Call or Calii.
yes,
Ah,
they are an online supermarket. Started in Monterrey, in the city in the north of Mexico, and they started in 2019, but really with the pandemic has been amazing growth, and really they are looking to provide a better alternative for consumers, bringing their groceries, especially fresh products, and in some cases directly from the rural areas to the city. So they are building a differentiation for the consumer in terms of the quality and the price of the products compared to a traditional supermarket, and they are doing it by cutting or taking out some of the many intermediaries that typically you see on how those fresh products are produced and get to the consumers. So it's a great team, young founders that are building this, and if they continue executing the right way, they have the potential to be um, kind of one of the leaders first in Mexico and potentially expanding to other Latin American countries.
I think that that space has been pretty hot everywhere. I know at least here in the United States it has been as well. With we have similar businesses, Instacart and Amazon, of course, has their fresh program. And to your point, I think with the pandemic, everyone being stuck indoors, people were more open to trying grocery delivery. And I think the bet is that with that convenience, the trend will be here to stay even after things open up. So
Yeah, correct. I think that what the pandemic has done is, in for many of these startups has accelerated the growth, probably between 3 to 5 years,
yeah.
and that is a change of behavior. And even if we go back to a kind of a normal world where we were pre-pandemic, some of these changes in behavior will stay there, and consumers have tried the convenience and the benefits of some of these services,
Mm-hmm.
and a good number of them will continue using them.
Yeah. Earlier, we had talked about some of the opportunities in Mexico in terms of funding, raising funds, government regulation, and that's on the venture capital side of things and the financial side of things. In terms of more the startup side of things, the actual founders and entrepreneurs themselves, what are your thoughts on actually creating a company in Mexico or the broader LATAM region? And what are some challenges or opportunities associated with that for the actual founders?
Probably this is one of the best times for a founder to start and a startup in Latin America. On one hand, because of the pandemic and the history of the last years is, there is the basis for having, as I say, digital solutions to problems and consumers and clients, willing to switch from whatever they were doing before. So it's a great time in that sense. There is a general recognition that startups are generating and creating valid solutions for these problems, and I think the clear sector where that has happened is fintech, where we have seen hundreds of startups really providing much better solutions what the traditional banks have done for many years, and they are gaining market share and growing rapidly because of that. So in that sense, it's a great time. Also, it's a great time in terms of the capital available to build and grow these businesses. For many years, I think we were like a smaller number of funds in the region supporting these startups. The capital available was less than ideal, but in 2018-19, we saw the interest from investors from outside the region to invest here increasing significantly, and we have the case of SoftBank establishing a fund of a huge fund for the region.
Yeah. Didn't they also just create a SPAC for the region to take some of those companies public as well?
Yes,
yeah.
I just read that they raise a SPAC, which is an interesting development, and also there is another SPAC raised by some entrepreneurs from ex-entrepreneurs from Argentina, precisely to do an acquisition in tech. But we have, beside those cases, there are a good number of funds from the US and Europe that now seriously are looking for opportunities in Latin America. And 3 years ago, they were not even open to invest here. So the capital has increased. And as I said, great entrepreneurs with that vision to solve that real problem can have a good chance of convincing investors to support them and execute in a market that is much more open to startups in general. So I think it's really a great time now, probably much better than where we were 5 years ago.
No, that's a really important perspective. As we're kind of getting towards the end here, and thinking about the future, both for Dalus Capital and then also for Mexico and the broader LATAM ecosystem, where do you see your firm heading in the next few years, 5 years, 10 years, and then also where do you think the startup and entrepreneurship ecosystem and funding ecosystem in Mexico is heading in the future as well?
Well, I think the ecosystem for sure will continue growing. Now we are getting to the point where we are having kind of our first unicorns, and also we are starting to see kind of the first successful exits where investors from founders, angel investors, fund managers are getting good returns on some of the most successful companies. So that is generating a validation that will bring more entrepreneurs, more investors into the ecosystem. So I think that we will see the activity growing significantly over the next few years, because the opportunity is out there. I think there was this for some people, this big question mark, if you can build technology startups in Mexico or Latin America. Now we're getting the point with real validation that yes, you can, and these companies can become very valuable, and and investors can exit them and generate significant value. So that is will attract more investors, capital, entrepreneurs, and people that want to work in the startups. It was harder 5 years ago. Now it's a valid alternative compared to working in a more traditional corporation. So that's what we see. And in our fund, what we see is in the typical path of a fund, raising the following fund, continuing investing in startups in these 4 themes that I described before. Keeping our same investment strategy where we think that we have a good track record, and really we are generating interesting opportunities and continue to do that. For sure, I think that we think that the climate innovation will become more important in the next years. That is once we pass the kind of the pandemic, I think the focus will come back to the problem of climate change.
I hope so.
And we are sure that, because we're already seeing it, that we're gonna see more entrepreneurs and more investors willing to support those entrepreneurs that are building solutions that contribute to mitigate emissions or adapt to the climate change, because it's something that we will need to do as societies everywhere. So we are convinced that there are going to be plenty of opportunities there, and we are convinced that we want to contribute to that in a way with our investment experience. It's not that we're going to be doing only that. I think we will continue to be active in the other sectors where we have experience and we have been successful, but that emerging sector, I think, will become an important one for our strategy.
For people who are either investors who are maybe from the US or other regions who would like to get in touch about potential investing opportunities in Mexico, or for founders who would like to get in touch, do you have a way of people for contacting you? Are you active on social media? What's the best way for individuals to reach you?
Yeah, I'm active on social media. You can find me, on Twitter. My handle is at Serebrisky, like my last name. I also have a blog at Serebrisky.com, and you can email us to the fund. I think our open email is info@daluscapital.com. So with that, people can reach it. I think it's very easy to reach us, through social media, and I think we try to be very good at answering all the inbounds requests.
Great. I will put that information in the show notes. Everybody be sure to check out Diego and Dalus Capital. That's Dalus spelled DALUS. Check out Diego's blog as well. And that's it for today. So Diego, thanks again for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Seb, for this great talk.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.